This is Joseph Luis Nunez. Most of you don't know him, but he is one of the most important people in the history of football. Without playing a single minute of professional football, one small decision would impact the next generation of major world football. Nunez was the president of FC Barcelona in a time before Barcelona would even win the Champions League. While being a big club, it was clear Real Madrid were a way more successful club than them. It's 1987, Nunez was in his first run as president, so he was trying everything in order to gain an advantage. He would end up trying to work around with players' contracts, payments, and even taxes, which would lead into rumors of players not receiving their agreed wages and players owing a lot of money in back taxes and fees. A lot of this drama would start a blaming game where the players were at fault for demanding money, to the president being too stingy, or the coach allowing for this awful dressing room. After a consistent back and forth with the president's players, staffs, and fans, FC Barcelona players and staff would decide to discuss their discomfort with the higher-ups in the Hespera Hotel. Nunez would catch wind of this, leading to him and his team picking apart the entire team, leaving only 10 players for the next season, and starting talks with a former Barcelona player to hire him as the new head coach. Who is that player, you may ask? Well, that would be none other than Johan Cruyff. This whole situation would be called the 1988 Multiple Hesperia, and while chaotic for sure, this led to a golden generation with the Blaugrana. With the appointment of Johan Cruyff came a bunch of amazing players and new tactics, which would revolutionize the club, eventually earning Barcelona's first European Cup. And with Johan planting the seeds, Pep would become the coach he needed to be for his players, inspired by the Barcelona Dream Team, marking a true footballing era. This situation is a perfect example of the butterfly effect, a cause and effect so strong that if not felt in the moment, it will ripple on, causing crazy scenarios that can have an everlasting effect for generations to come. Ronaldo's first spell in Man United was definitely special, yet United getting CR7 wasn't crystal clear at first. Manchester United had recently parted ways with David Beckham to Real Madrid, funnily enough, and United was looking to replace him with a more attacking option. That's where Harry Kewell from Leeds United looked like an interesting replacement, and despite the interest from United, Kewell would actually go to Liverpool. At the same time though, a young Cristiano was definitely in the radar, so much so that United would actually have a friendly that summer against Sporting Lisbon. With Ronaldo starting, he was ready to show Sir Alex Ferguson what he was capable of, and after a good game for Ronaldo, he was invited to come into the United dressing room. Alex Ferguson would actually introduce the young teenager to the first team players. On his way back to his team's dressing rooms, all the players were excited for Ronaldo, telling him he was going to sign for Manchester United. And in Cristiano's words, that night was perfect. A few days later, Manchester United would sign Cristiano Ronaldo for 12 million euros, making him the most expensive teenage footballer in English football history at the time. Over the next few years after his transfers across the world would get crazier and crazier, getting more expensive every single year. Some are worse than others, but most of the time, there is one team that seems to know how to do business when investing huge amounts of money, and that team is Real Madrid. Like the time they would break the record transfer fee at the time with Cristiano Ronaldo himself, only once again to break it with Gareth Bale a few years later. Bale had just come out a breakout season with Spurs, and the signing for Madrid would prove to be worth it straight away, winning that year's Champions League and Copa del Rey with Bale helping along the way. But what most people forget is that Bale wasn't always the pacey, hard-hitting winger he was in Madrid. Actually, he started his professional career mostly playing fullback. Bale was mainly used as a left back. Harry Redknapp saw something within Bale. He decided to play him further forward. Games against Inter Milan in the Champions League are examples of the brilliance he brought to the attack, and while he will go down as one of the best Madrid players of all time, I can't say the same for the player that I mentioned here. Denis Cheryshev was a Russian Real Madrid player from their academy, debuting with the first team in 2012. Denis will be loaned out for a few years to a few different teams in Spain, and while in those teams, he would pick up a suspension into the last game of the 2015-16 Copa del Rey season. Rafa Benitez would actually be appointed that season, giving Denis a chance within the first team. Deciding to play Denis in Real Madrid's Copa del Rey opener, Madrid would win the game, but talks of Denis would rise after the game, as more people realized that Denis wasn't even allowed to play that game, leaving the Spanish FA no choice but to eliminate Real Madrid from the competition. This would be one of the many reasons Madrid would eventually decide to sack Rafa Benitez, later appointing Zinedine Zidane, ultimately creating one of the main components to Real Madrid's three-peat. None of these, in my opinion, stand anywhere near this butterfly effect though. In June 2020, in the midst of the pandemic-riddled season, Brighton would face off against Arsenal, where 35 minutes into the game, Arsenal goalkeeper Bernd Leno would crash into French forward Mbappé, causing Leno to be replaced by Emilio Martinez. In turn, Arsenal would lose the game, but in the short term, that didn't matter as Martinez was finally starting. Being at Arsenal for several years, trying so desperately to get his chances. And now here he is in the first team. And would you know it, Martinez and Arsenal would actually have a very nice end to the season, winning the FA Cup, leaving Martinez to join Aston Villa, where he would be promised first team minutes, giving the Argentine what he needed most, which was game time. All of this culminated into what gave Martinez the confidence to help Argentina win that year's Copa America, securing Messi's first international trophy. And it wouldn't stop there, as Messi and Martinez would continue being the two most influential players in that team to win a Copa America, Finalissima, and a World Cup, all from one small mistake.